If my guest is correct, our nation no longer exists as a sovereign state. Our leaders, past and present, including Her Majesty the Queen, have committed treason. Parliament will shortly be abolished. My guest is a computer expert who has worked all over the world, including in New York for major companies such as JP Morgan Chase Bank, and is one of the leading anti-European Union campaigners. His website, www.eutruth.org.uk. He is David Noakes. David, welcome.
Thanks, Theo. Good to meet you.
Yes, good to meet you. Now, you've been an activist, an anti-EU activist for a while. How did you become aware that maybe there was another side to this European Union that perhaps we weren't being told?
It became obvious to me that whatever we voted for in England, we didn't get. And the same agenda. The will of the people was never being implemented. It didn't matter on what subject. The government was completely ignoring the people. And I started doing some research, and I started reading EU treaties, and I found out why.
Okay, and what did you discover then?
Very simply, that the European Union has the constitution of a dictatorship, the laws of a police state, and 120,000 regulations, which, when fully enforced, will drive us into abject poverty, which is their intention.
I mean, why would they have that intention, assuming that's true?
There are huge benefits to people who are running dictatorships. So, you know, you look at the Soviet dictatorship.
Stalin or...
Yes, they live a life of incredible power and luxury. And right the way through history, before Roman times, from the Tower of Babel, people have been trying to create dictatorships where they have a superior standard of living. There's an agenda that's been going for a very long time. This is the third attempt to build a dictatorship in Europe. The Kaiser had a go, the Führer had a go, and this is the third attempt, and this is the one that looks like it's going to be successful.
Is there a Kaiser? Is there a Führer? Who is that? I mean, Angela Merkel, are you saying that she's the Führer?
There is a pyramid of power. As you will probably know, there are the Illuminati. Underneath them, you have the Bilderbergers, and the job of the Bilderbergers is to build the EU dictatorship. There are only 140 of them. You cannot be a Prime Minister of England unless you are a Bilderberger.
So Cameron is a Bilderberger, is he?
Yes.
Okay.
And then underneath the Bilderbergers, you have the Freemasons, who are the foot soldiers of the European Union in England. Most of the 350,000 Freemasons have no idea what secret they are protecting. They go through all these oaths, but they don't know what the secret and the agenda is at the centre. Just as over 90% of the 350,000 Freemasons are only there to disguise the central core of the Freemasonry agenda, but everything that I'm saying is happening is in EU treaties. There have been 6 EU treaties passed by Parliament and signed by the Queen. If you read secret documents released from the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, which was the internal government illegally foisting the EU on us, it's absolutely clear that Ted Heath knew he was abolishing Britain and expected the nation to be abolished before the end of this century. The press is controlled by a mixture of Freemasons and common purpose, and they never reveal the agenda. But these documents, you know, they've all got numbers like FCO 30/1048 and FCO 26/1212. These documents reveal exactly what the government was doing. They spent a total of £461,000 on this campaign to deceive the public, a disinformation campaign.
How much?
So we must assume that campaign continued, because document FCO 26/1215 is a summary of everything that they did and how to do it better in the future. So we must assume, and they haven't released any more documents, that campaign is still going today. And they must be spending 100 million on it to deceive us. The nation of Britain was abolished on the 1st of January 2009.
2009, okay.
By the Lisbon Treaty.
Okay. Okay, so this abolition of the UK, what does it mean?
This is just a fact. I mean, over the last 30 years, they have moved thousands of people up into positions of power on the basis of the fact that they're pro-EU. And you couldn't get through the party list system unless you were pro-EU. And that is how they got a majority of 138 MPs on the 21st of January 2008 for the Lisbon Treaty and to abolish this nation. The European Union was not founded by Monet or Salter or Schuman. It was started off by Hermann Göring, who made a speech in 1940 establishing something he called the European Economic Community. And in 1942, there was the first conference of the EEC at Berlin University.
This is during the war, then, obviously?
Yes, this was the Nazis. But it was at that conference that the EEC was set in stone. That's where they came up with all the documents were produced then. The common monetary policy, the common economic policy, the common fisheries policy, the common agricultural policy. The whole thing was set in stone at that conference in Berlin in 1942, and it hasn't changed since. 13 nations attended the first summit of the EEC in Germany. Members of the Nazi High Command had a meeting with big German companies included, like IG Farben, where they commissioned the European Union to carry forward German ambitions. And Hitler himself commissioned the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst Intelligence Department to control future development of the European Union. In 1946, they switched the European Union from a Nazi to a communist basis, and it's been communist ever since.
Russia is not part of the EU, is it? And they're not likely to become part of the EU, not in the short term anyway.
Well, that was the original plan in 1917. They were hoping to create one Soviet state right through Europe. It still is the agenda that those two bodies will get together, the Soviet Union and the European Soviet will get together as one.
It is quite a shocking...
By the way, any political party that is campaigning for a referendum, you know immediately is working for the European Union, because we will never be allowed a referendum. So if they're campaigning for a referendum, they know they're completely safe. Communism is favoured by wealthy bankers. So it was A. Rothschild in 1917 who financed the communist revolution in the Soviet Union. The New World Order agenda covers both sides of the Atlantic. Both nations, they want to bring down both nations. They know they've got to bring Britain and America down first.
So you've suggested certain things that people can do.
Yeah, I mean, the simplest campaign of all, just shock 2 people a day with the truth.